What's up, y'all? Welcome back to another episode of Never Ending Tomorrow. I am your host, Tiffany Reneè, and as you can see, I'm here alone. I got my twin. What have you been? Anyway, I'm here alone because it's a very intimate, intimate conversation that we're about to have. Now, the title of this episode is called What Did the Fish in the Sea Do to Me? And I feel myself getting emotional already. Um, in this episode, I wanted to play the recording that I have of the moment that I found out the case of my sexual assault, that I had to gather the courage to even go to the authorities for, had been thrown out. And I don't know why I recorded, honestly. I think at the moment it was something that I just subconsciously did, and I wanted to be able to recognize where I had come from, and I wanted to remember that moment because it was such a pivotal moment. It is such a pivotal moment in my life. And so I have it. I'm going to try not to get emotional. I didn't record the entire thing. I mean, I was on the phone with the district attorney and my victim's advocate for some time, at least about 15-20 minutes, when they told me. And just to give y'all a little backstory, so I had been communicating with the victim's advocate for about 2-3 years. And I would speak to her every few months. She would call and check up on me, give me any updates with the case. Now, the case was filed before the pandemic. However, I ended up, it ended up being pushed back because of the pandemic. So, everything shut down, courts, everything. And so cases were piling up, piling up, right? And so she was just letting me know, like, we haven't forgotten about you. We haven't forgotten about you. These kind of cases are very, very tedious. I decided to seek counsel and government support way after I had been assaulted. And so there were multiple factors that played a role in this case in particular. And so I was patient. My parents, not so much, but I was patient. I didn't stress about it. I didn't think about it too much. I was just kind of like, it is what it is. And looking back, now I feel like I was so patient, right? And I was so just nonchalant because I didn't want to get my hopes up. And so then when I received a phone call and heard them say, unfortunately, it was like, this is why. This is why. This is why I did not even have to do this. This is why I didn't have to put my family through this. This is why I didn't want to do this. In the same token, my God, I mean that in its entirety, my God, the presence of him that I felt in that moment, it was like I was so hurt and angry. And at the same time, I literally felt like I was covered in blood. It was as if he had whispered to me, you're going to be okay. I can't describe it. So yeah, without further ado, let's check out the recording and I'll follow up. So again, this was at the end of the conversation. I haven't spoken to them since. It concluded with a lot of compliments. I mean, this was the second time I spoke to the district attorney, but it was the first time on the phone. The first time I met him was in person. and my victim's advocate was not there. The one that was assigned to me, another victim's advocate stepped in. And so I had not ever seen her in person, but I've only seen him in person once, and then spoke to him on the phone once, but spoke to her on the phone multiple times. Anyway, irrelevant. Here we go.
Who you are and what your accomplishments are and what you have to offer the world. Nothing we could have done would have changed that. So I really do wish you the best. And if there's anything we can ever do for you, please reach out.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much. Do you have the same number? I'm not.
Yeah, it's still 8657.
Okay.
I had to clean my voicemail out recently, so if you've tried to call me in the past couple of days, it might, if you're not getting to me, it's probably because my voicemail's been full.
Okay. I haven't, but I appreciate that. And I just appreciate you both.
Well, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to call. I know that this is, kind of sudden and news that you might want to digest, but, it doesn't mean that this didn't happen. That's not it. Unfortunately, because of the statute of limitations, that's why we can't proceed. But it doesn't mean that this didn't happen to you. It happened to you. And I'm just sorry that we couldn't hold him accountable.
It's okay. Thank you.
All right, Tiffany. You call us if you have questions, okay?
I will. Y'all have a blessed day.
You too.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Let me get myself together. I got my tissue over here because I felt like this was going to ignite some emotions. Rightfully so, right? I try to be as vulnerable and raw with you as possible. This is not the first time I've heard this recording. This is the second. So funny thing is, I recorded this. And that was that. I recorded it and did not think anything else of it. And this was back in February. It was the week of my father's birthday. It was a couple days before I was supposed to go on a trip with my dad and celebrate his birthday in his hometown. And it was a very, very tough trip for me. We were going for Mardi Gras, and so it was supposed to be full of fun and joy, and that's just not what it was at all for me. And I talked to my mom and I talked to my fiance, and of course they supported whatever decision I made. In the same token, they said, hey, he has had power over your life long enough. So if you were to go on a trip and celebrate your father, have fun, see your family members before this notification, then that's what you should do. I needed to hear that. I needed to hear that from people who knew of the situation, knew what I had gone through, and knew how this had impacted my life. I needed people in that moment to push me to a capacity that I didn't know I could reach. So although the trip was not the time of my life, I am so thankful I got to go. I don't very often get to go places with my father. Um, I love to travel, and he's a provider. He's gonna go to work. Okay. And so it was very important that I did not miss that moment because of what I had gone through. Now, it was also a very intricate time for me to be told this because of how, like I said, my parents felt about the situation. And I didn't tell my dad before the trip. For those of you who do not know, I was molested by a family member, and my father knows that person. He was one of the people who were adamant about me getting justice. He was one of the people who had to be around this person frequently. And so I received constant calls like, hey, have you heard about da da da? Have you heard from da 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 da? Like, what's going on? Like, what are they doing? What's happening? And I'm just like, I don't know. I'm not worried about it. You don't need to worry about it. If you do worry about it, don't call me and worry me about it. And I mean that in the most respectful way. I just could not harp on that situation. And I know that it impacted my family, and I don't take that away from them. I also know that it impacted them, but it happened to me, right? And because it happened to me, something happened to them. They were triggered. So I decided to let my dad know about the situation at a time where I shouldn't have. Like I said, the trip was very complicated. There was a moment that took place that I wasn't really fond of, and I confronted my father about that situation. And we all have our own struggles, him included, me included. And we all think differently, right? And so what I thought was an issue was not taken as an issue by him. Or to him, he didn't think it was an issue. So it's safe to say we bumped heads and we went left, like far left. I mean, I'm shaking, angry, emotional. I'm giving pull-up energy. And I'm not saying that it's just what I'm saying is not being heard and received, and it's being brushed off, and that did not sit right with me. And so, of course, to put the icing on the cake, I let him know, like, well, back up. I've been going through, I would say, an identity crisis for the past, since February of last year. So the past year and a half. Really, a little bit before this moment even. Only because I grew up in a house where what goes in the house stays in the house. A child stays in a child's place. Be respectful, have manners, those things. And so when it came to me understanding who I am as an adult, it's very challenging. And it's even more challenging when people still see you as a child, or they still see you as the little cousin. They still see you as the smart and intelligent one that can run a business and do this and that, but don't really have a voice in the business. Like, you just do paperwork. That's your role, right? If it comes time to have a conversation with people, then you have that conversation because you can be politically correct. Or when other people are going left, it's your job to save them. And so I am working, I'm improving. It's taking a lot of time to just remove all of that that's inside of me from my past. So in that moment, that was like the first time where I'm like, hey, once again, I've pushed my feelings aside and put everyone else's in front of me, in front of mine. And in this moment, you don't even know what I'm going through. I took the time to come out and celebrate you and do this and do that. And I just received kind of one of the worst things I could receive when it comes to news in my life. And I didn't tell you because this is not the time to have that conversation. One, two, I don't want to interrupt or ruin what the mission of this trip is. And that's for you to have a great time. That's for us to celebrate you, your life, your birthday. Thank God that you're still here with us. This is a time for us to build happy memories and not sit and just lie in the ugliness of our past. That's not what this is. And because I'm voicing one thing to you that you disagree with and you've gone left, now I'm stepping out of my character and I'm telling you what I've gone through. And then I said, you know what? This not working. This not working. And I was in the car with my fiance, and I'll never forget, we pulled over in the parking lot of the rental company because we had rented a car. And he called his grandmother, and I'm like, I just need prayer. I don't know how I am going to continue to have relationships with these people. I don't know how I'm going to continue to, and I don't want to say these people like they're just random. I mean my family, right? I don't know how I'm going to do it in this exact moment. And, of course, we reconciled our differences after that situation. There's still things that him and I disagree on, and that's just with anybody in life, right? You disagree with your spouse, you disagree with your children. It is what it is. I'm just learning to be okay with speaking my voice even if I'm not being heard. It bothers me, I have to admit, because I am human and I am an adult, right? And I do have a voice. It's like, why y'all want to hear me when somebody's doing wrong and y'all want me to steer them in the right direction? But when I'm the one who's suffering, nobody wants to hear me. In the same token, I understand that just might be a part of my purpose, to help other people and to have that small few that can help me. Anyway, I got totally sidetracked. So when they told me this information, part of the call that you all did not hear is how it started off. And of course, they're like, my victim advocate called and she's like, hey, I'm da-da-da-da. I'm like, hey, I got your number. Like, I know who you are. And she's like, okay, well, I have the district attorney on the phone and we want to discuss some things with you. Instantly knows where this is going. So I'm like, okay, is everything okay? She's like, well, I'll let him explain just so you can have a better understanding because, you know, he knows more official things than I do. He knows more of the political terms to use. And so I want to make sure that I'm not misconstruing any information and that you have all the answers to all the questions that you may have. And it comes directly from him. I'm like, okay, just say it. Respectfully, this is cute. Am I locking this? Respectfully, this is cute. Just say it. And so she's like, well, all right, let's just do it. So he gets on the phone and he's just like, Tiffany, like sighing off. Unfortunately, I just want to say, I want to start off by saying that you're such a wonderful person. You know, when I met you in person, after that meeting, I had a whole conversation with your victim's advocate and somebody else because there's a thing that you do as a victim advocate and even as a forensic social worker, which y'all might not have heard of. But forensic social workers who work for the state in that department basically conducted interviews with victims. And so they had a whole conversation, like, just based on your interview with us, we know, they know at that time, they know what I was in school in. So they know what I was going to school for. They knew that I was curious about social workers' role in that aspect. And so he's just giving me compliments about my poise, my personality, all of those things. He's like, your wisdom, your knowledge, we really think, for one, that you would be great in the role of a forensic social worker. And based on how you've handled this entire situation, if you choose to pursue this avenue, we wish you the best. We'll support you in that. You'll be great. With that said, that might have come after he told me, because I think when he first told me, I was still kind of like, okay, this is the result. When he was telling me about the job, but he did start off with some strengths, like, you were great during the interview. I wanted to let you know that I just got your case. So when I went in person to do the interview with him and the other victims advocate, that was the first time he had seen the case for the first time, maybe a week before. Mind you, I filed 3 years prior to that. He's like, this is the first time I've seen this. Unfortunately, this is a mistake on our end. It's a matter of dates in the statute of limitations. He says, at that time it was February. If this was tackled November of the prior year, or like a few months, I can't give you an exact date, but it was that close. He said, if this was tackled then, we will be moving forward to the judge. But because we are a few weeks too late, your statute of limitations has been met. They've been passed. And we have to close the case. So I have mixed emotions in the moment. I'm like, part of me is accepting of the situation. I can't do anything about it. We can't change it, right? Part of me is angry because if this is something that I had given to my victims advocate that had been with me throughout this time, why isn't there some type of communication between the staff and the state, and to a point where it acknowledges, like, hey, this is the date, this is the statute of limitations in this state with this particular situation. We need to make sure that this is pushed to the top of the list, right? And then part of me is like, just get off my phone. I appreciate the compliments. I appreciate acknowledging what you see, how you feel. I appreciate you acknowledging how I may feel. At the same time, let me digest this. Let me be done with this. So, I'm still respectful during the entire thing. And I just let them know, it is what it is. It's unfortunate. And the victims advocates, is saying, I unfortunately am not given the information, or I don't have the knowledge that the district attorney has, because I didn't go to school for this like he did. I went to school for something else, like, he's a lawyer, so he knows the law. I don't necessarily know it like him, which is understandable. I just wish that there was some type of connection, and that connection would be a person, or there's a system. If these things are logged into the computer, then there needs to be some type of alert that says, hey, this one is 6 months out, 3 months out, something, so that this does not happen to anyone else. With that said, I'm going to give y'all little statistics. Now, this is from 2020. From the CDC, but and that was some time ago, and I'm sure I hope there is some more up-to-date statistics, factual information out about this. Now, I was not raped, meaning I was not penetrated. I was just molested multiple times over a span of years, really. And one of the issues is that there's a lack of reporting. In my case, that wasn't the case, right? I did decide to report. Now, I did decide to report at a later date, which a part of me at one moment regretted, because I felt like if I just would have went to the police sooner, if I had the courage to go sooner, then this would not be the situation. This would not be the conclusion. I would not be fearful of any other young woman that crosses paths with the person who victimized me. Right? Anyway, the issue starts with, a lack of reporting. But then once you report it, it is estimated that only 39% of rapes, 39, are actually reported. Only 39. And then once they're reported, only 16 result in a conviction. And so again, I was not raped. My heart still aches for victims that experience similar situations like me, and it aches even more for victims who experienced the full force of it all. 16%. So I encourage you, if you're watching this and you are working in the law enforcement field and you work in particular with those who are victim survivors of abuse, I encourage you to figure out what kind of way this system can change. How, when, and who needs to sign off on it. I encourage you to do so. Out of the population, 50% of women and 30% of men are sexually assaulted, and the highest riskiers are between the ages of 12 and 34. And of course, females are more prone to be assaulted. And it's even more scary, I shall say, for me, thinking about it now. And I know a lot of parents in the world we live in today, because I work with children who are in marginalized communities, and some of the young girls are being forced to be adults in other manners, raise their siblings, have jobs, do this, and that, even young men. And so these type of situations they experience, and unfortunately they don't even know that this is what they're experiencing, because they've been forced to be grown in other ways. And so now they naturally want to be grown when it comes to being sexually active, right? And then in some situations, there's those like me, the quiet ones, the ones who sit and observe, the ones who people often overlook, or they see, but they don't really recognize what's going on or identify with them. They don't connect with them. It's those individuals who end up suffering. And then because they don't want the family to be broken, because they don't want to lose the privilege of having both parents in their life, because they don't want to lose the privilege of having a half sibling that they actually have some kind of relationship with and get to spend time with, taken away from them, they say, you know what? And let me add, because for me, I knew that the person that had done it had experienced the same thing. Because I knew that internally there were some emotional and mental disconnects, and there were some obstacles from their past that they did not overcome, or that they went through but was not treated, was not acknowledged. I was like, I don't want to make their life worse, as if they didn't do what they did to me. It's a tough situation, but it's a reality. And I'd like to think that God, I know, chooses for things to happen for a reason, chooses for people to be in your life for a season and a reason. And I don't know anything as to what pushed me to press record that 1 90-second recording that you all just heard. But I'd like to think it was for this moment, for me to let you know that you're not alone. If you are out there and you have experienced any form of sexual assault, any form of abuse, I'm here to let you know you're not alone. And that you have the power to choose whether or not you'll be a survivor or a victim. Because I'm a survivor. I hold what do? I hold my head high. I forgive. I forgave. I'm still forgiving, but I do not forget. And I challenge you to do the same. I challenge you not to hold it over the heads of the people in your lives. But I challenge you also to set boundaries and put your foot down. And if that person still has access to you by way of relationships that you have with other people, then you make sure that it's known whenever you're around. If they're around, I'm not there. Whether it's a holiday or just a random day, put your foot down. And if the person that you are setting the boundary with cannot respect that boundary, then so be it. So be it. I love you all. I thank you for allowing me to share this with you. And I hope you have a wonderful day. And I hope that this has helped you. And if it didn't, it wasn't for you. Share with somebody who it might be for. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, and let us know what you think. If you want to know more, just let us know. If I'm willing to share, I will. Love y'all. Peace.